Okay, this is my how-to video on how I installed these clear taillight covers and my install of the Easy Performance Sequential LED board. Now there's a couple things I need to cover before I dive into this that you need to know about this. Number one is that the fact that these sit on top of your taillights after you cut them out, so they're going to be a little thicker. So as you can see, they are going to stick out a little bit beyond your middle panel, which to me is not a big deal because I actually made this light up panel that does the same thing. It sits in front. So it's almost flush on my car, but it is going to stick out a little bit. Number two is the size. They're a little smaller. It's the biggest that they can be made from what I've told. So as you can see, the lens doesn't come all the way down to the stock. And when you come around to the side here, you can see that it comes up maybe 3/8 of an inch short. To me, it doesn't bother me one bit. No one's really ever going to notice that. I mentioned you can get them in a couple different ways from Mark. I bought this first set clear. This way you can paint your own theme, whatever you want to do. You can get them with the black border around the outside and then the black honeycomb in between, and then they'll just be clear where all the hex would be clear. Or you can get it frosted like I got it, because I wasn't using stop bulbs. I wanted to actually use the boards and you would totally see them. So a couple different ways to go. And the basis is, which I'll show in more detail, is you have to cut out, which is a pain in the butt. It took about an hour to cut these lenses because they are so thick. And with a cutting disc, the plastic just likes to melt to the disc. And once you have a layer of plastic around the cutting disc, it just doesn't cut anymore. So I went through quite a few discs. But anyway, you cut out the whole center. That way you still have a border top and bottom. And then this basically just adheres to the top like so. And they fit pretty nice. Nice fit overall. The rest of the parts I need, these are the Easy Performance Sequential LED taillights. They mount inside. They have 12 different patterns. There's actually a little push button here to select your pattern. Now it's kind of a pain to do that because you have to remove your tail light, pull out the actual socket. I'll show when it's installed, and then you can push in there with your finger and select your tail light. Now right now, basically the way they plug in is they have a simulated bulb here that plugs in your tail light socket. I got this socket here just to so I can play around with it a little bit. The pink wire attached, if you want sequential, has to go to ignition power. And for them to work properly, you're going to need a special relay that they offer, $25. Electronic timer relay. I'm going to do another video on how to hook this up because this is a really cool relay. Even if you just have LED bulbs, you don't get the hyper flash because this is a pure timer relay. I love this thing. So, all right, I'm going to cut open my taillight and show where we're at. I made a cutting guideline here. You can go a little farther in, not just cut it where the red meets the black, because you need a little room for the silicone. But what's really important before you cut, you could always just cut again if you have too much, is just test fit the lens on here and make sure you can't see your masking tape. Otherwise that means you're not cutting enough. And lo and behold, it looks good. And right there, I see my masking tape. So I got to pull up my line a little bit right there. Everywhere else looks good. Plenty of room to put my silicone on. I'm not going to have any problems there. Don't worry about the paint there or the tape. Let me remove it. So playing with my upper tape line a little bit, you'll see how I kind of had to curve it where it actually goes into the black. Because anything less than that, you can actually see it. And you'll just see a black line there if you don't cut enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I'll do a retest fit. I'll sand the edge, make it smooth so I don't scratch the inside of the lens. And then I'll see if I have to cut a little more. Okay, first one is cut. I have to clean off all the broken edges. I'll sand it down nice and smooth. Most of it should break right off. This took about an hour to do one. These lenses are really, really thick. I'd say close to ½ an inch thick. I think I burnt out my Dremel, which was 20 years old anyway, but I switched to my air tool, and waiting for air pressure to build up to cut again just took forever. So one done. Here's the board installed. A couple screws, top and bottom to secure. It's pretty much as deep as it can go because of the way it curves right there. So that's why you're going to get a little bit of a diffuser failure right here where you're going to see the individual LEDs. I actually had a couple LEDs that were broken off the board when I got mine, but I was able to solder it back on. Here is the first one mounted. Now unfortunately the way these boards fit, they don't go all the way to the edge. And then because of you get less and less vertical distance here, the diffuser kind of stops not working towards the edge. I mean, when you drive your regular car, though, technically, when you hit your brake lights, it stops about here. The outer part doesn't even light. So now I'm kind of tempted to maybe put a small LED board right there that just keeps a consistent red when I turn my taillights on. And then when I hit the turn signal, that'll turn off, and then this will sequence. So I'll just do the sequence here real quick. I got the brake light on right now, or it's just the running lights. Here is the driver's side assembled fully. Now on both of them I added my LED strips because I just did not like how the light ends, you know, and this whole half here does not light up. So that makes it look good for a running light. Of course, for the sequential brake, it'll just stop here, but that's kind of what the factory lights do anyway. So now I'm working on a diffuser, a couple layers, because the problem is with LED diffusion is you need depth and something to scatter light. When you get to the edge here, it is literally like not even half an inch deep. So you see the individual LEDs. So here is the reverse halo, 80mm halo. I drilled a small hole underneath. I'll cover that with silicone so no water comes out. And I'll probably take the little resistor box here and just kind of silicone it up inside. Hold it all there. So when you put the reverse lights on, you'll have white in the middle and then a round ring. Wanted to do something. I mean, there's no reason why not. I had to cut out this anyway. So when I fit on the lens, you get your red halo there. When you back up, of course, on the camera, it looks like it's all white, but it's not. It's just a red halo in person. So I forgot to film my mirror tint and my frost tint and how I did it. What I did for that is I actually took just 30,000 Lexan I use for a lot of my projects. It's flexible. You can cut it with a pair of scissors. You can bend it at like a right angle without any problems. I made these cut exactly the size as the opening of the taillight that you just cut out. So, you know, you have the border around the taillight. You got that whole part that's open. You can just literally lay this on top, mark a line, cut it with scissors, and make it so it fits just perfectly inside that border, but it's not sticking out at all. And then I made a couple ledges for it to rest on and screwed it down. Now to make the ledges, I took thin pieces. I cut out the Lexan. I bent it like a right angle, and I siliconed it as like a lip. So you have a lip that the Lexan can rest on. Now for the mirror tint and the frost tint I use, I'll put the part numbers in the description. They're only static cling. You can't find that stuff with adhesive because they're designed, you know, for your house windows or a shower or something like that. So the way the mirror tint works, if you use it on your house, it would go on the inside of your window. So when people are looking in from the outside, you'd see a mirror, but then like when you come from the inside, here you can actually see out. So the mirror tint I applied to the backside. If you look at this, let's say facing up, picture your tail light is on top, like this is outward. So the mirror tint is on the backside of the Lexan. And then the second piece of Lexan, I used the frost tint and I put it on the front side. And then as you put them together, the mirror tint one goes on top of the frost tint. It's kind of like a sandwich. This way they can't lift, they can't bubble up. And then I have the extra frost tint to give me a little more light diffusion with those boards, and then the mirror tint so when you look inside the taillight from the outside of the car, it looks like a mirror. Like I said, look like a sandwich. You got your two pieces of bread with the Lexan, mirror tint on the back side of the first layer, the outer layer, and then the frost tint on this one. So the frost and the mirror are basically pressed together. So when you use your adhesive, you just have to be careful. I didn't film the adhesive part because I didn't want to take a chance of screwing up. So you have to do a nice bead, and I suggest practicing. The stuff I use is quite thick. I actually applied it to the lens first. So that way I can see what a black border was. You know, I put it right in the middle of the border, not too thick. I'll show a picture of the first stuff I used that didn't hold. And you want to basically have someone help you, and you're going to lower it, of course, using two hands, trying to center it very slowly on the reverse lens first as you push it down. Once you do that, I put some towels on to protect it, and then use some large cable ties just to hold it in place. And then I just held it there until it was done. I let mine sit actually for a week just to make sure the second time I did it, because the first time, like I said, it didn't hold very well. Other than that, that's it. But like I said, I recommend having a friend help just in case, because when you push it on, you want someone to hold some pressure on here as you get the cable ties and clamps ready to hold this together. You don't want to push it down, and when you release, it's going to naturally want to lift back up, and then you're going to squeeze it back down again. Don't go too crazy tight with the cable ties. You know, it doesn't take a lot of force to do it. Both taillights are clamped and drying. I really liked using the window adhesive. It's thicker than silicone. It kind of felt nice and firm going down. So I really hope I have a good seal. I just went slow. I had a friend help me kind of hold everything, and recommended by the guy that sells them is to put some towels down before you put any straps or clamps on so you don't leave imprints in the actual lens itself. I didn't film the reshoot of when I used new adhesive, so this is the first stuff I used, 3M Auto Glass windshield adhesive, and it didn't hold at all. I mean, I was able to peel off the lenses like they were nothing, like there was no glue whatsoever on them. So this stuff I do not use. It's what I showed in the picture. That was just basically an example to show how thick of a bead I went on there. And it goes on black, so if you ooze on the inside, you're going to see it. This is the stuff I ended up actually using. I like it because it's really thick. It doesn't sag at all. I can apply it to the lens, and you know, it's not like watery. It doesn't ooze. I put a little too much on the passenger one, and it did ooze on the inside just a hair where you can barely see it, but it's clear. So it still lights up. I mean, no one will ever notice it but me. So this stuff worked really well. I think it was like $12 what I paid for it. Used a caulk gun to apply it. Overall, pretty happy with it. Now we'll see over time on how well it holds up. I can't 100% vouch for this just yet. I'm really curious to see if I make it through winter. So here they are, fully installed. What I plan on doing before I put it on, it looks like I have a really good seal, is I'm just going to run some water all along the channel, make sure I don't get water in the lens because it'll be easier to fix it now than when they're in the car. As I noted before, as you can see, they're slightly smaller than the stock taillights. It definitely helped having a friend hold them while I put these on. One thing I added after I adhered the lenses on, so when you glue these on, basically, you're going to do your bead of adhesive all the way around the edge and then set this on. The problem I notice is you're going to have a gap up here that water can get down in between your stock taillight lens and the new lens, because you know your bead of silicone, or not silicone, but the adhesive is going to be here, so water can collect in here. Is that a big deal? Possibly not, but since I daily drive this car and I even drive it in the winter, I'm afraid that water will get trapped in here if it rains, and then it'll freeze overnight, and then the process of freezing and thawing will cause it to expand and will eventually pry this lens off. So what I did is I just did a nice smooth bead of black silicone all the way down, just to kind of fill that crack, so that way there is no gap in between these two right here. Now, not everything I do has to be done. You can get these in clear, you can get them frosted. Since I use the Easy Performance sequential LED boards, the whole board is green, so even with the frost paint that comes on these, my taillights look kind of green in the sunlight. So I added basically like a one-way mirror, which you'd use on a house or like a shower, attached to some 30,000 Lexan, and put it behind the lens, which does two things. Number one, it gives it almost a mirror finish. I know on the camera it looks white, but in person it looks very silver. You know, I have silver graphics, you know, wheels, you name it, so it kind of matches my theme, and that way I don't see the actual green circuit board coming through the frost. But if you're not doing the Easy Performance circuit boards and you're just going to use red LED bulbs, you don't have to do any of that. You can just cut the hole on your stock taillights, glue these on, and you're done. Alright, and that is it. I hope the video helped. If you have any questions, shoot me a message and I'll see if I can give you a hand. Thanks for watching.